You guys have been loving the neighborhood tour videos that we do on this channel and also the market updates. So for this video, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a fusion of those exact two things. So in this video, we're gonna cover some of the best and worst cities, and we're gonna do that in two different categories. One's gonna be the price points, so which cities are going up in price the most and which ones are dropping like crazy, and then also which are most and least competitive. So we're gonna be talking both where we are right now and where prices have been from the last year and where we think they're going in the future. Why don't we start off with our median sales price. Now this I've got filtered for you starting with the most expensive suburbs. Victoria, Edina, and Chanhassen gonna be some of our most expensive suburbs. Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, and Andover. Now if you're wondering why you don't see cities in there like Wayzata, I did filter this down so it's only gonna show us cities that have at least about 15 sales within the last 12 months. And then it's also gonna filter out, I took out some of the kind of outliers, certain cities, for example, that had a ton of new construction, that really skews the numbers when all of a sudden the development closes. We're gonna filter this down to about the top 50 best suburbs around Minneapolis and St. Paul. And here are some of our least expensive. So we're filtering that list of 50 by the least expensive sale price. So you're gonna see here, after St. Paul, you can see we've got Brooklyn Center, Coon Rapids, Fridley, Maplewood, and Crystal. What I've done here with these colors here, by the way, is the green is generally gonna be the North Metro, blues are going to be the South Metro. You've heard me say it a bunch before, but I thought it'd be good to illustrate. The overall North Metro is just gonna be a little less expensive. South is going to be more expensive. And then I've got Minneapolis, St. Paul there in yellow. So generally speaking, if you're looking for something more affordable, you can consider the north side there. One thing that is really interesting I found on this, I initially put in these colors because I wanted to see if there was a big change in demand, if one was more competitive than the other. That's actually not the case. So I'll give you a great example right here with Coon Rapids. You can see Coon Rapids median sale price, $285. That was up, that was actually down, 2.8%. However, it's also one of the really competitive inventory cities. We'll get to that one in a second, but why don't we first check out how these prices have changed over the last 12 months. So if we filter these by the biggest change, these are gonna be the ones that have gone up in value the most. Now, of course, remember, lower price points that jump up the same dollar amount, it's gonna be a less percentage than the more expensive suburbs. They go up the same amount, but it's a lower percentage. So this is just looking at the percentage here. You can see column F there, change over 1 year. It's kind of incredible to think, but Shoreview almost 50% up right there. That price point, again, I do think because that's one of our smaller cities, that one can get affected a little bit more if there's a really high or low end home. That will skew those numbers more quickly than a city that simply has got more closings happening. North St. Paul, Chanhassen, Roseville, Minnetonka, Andover, all rounding out that as well. There really was no main distinction between North and South Metro. They all really have, a lot of them have seen a really nice increase. These are looking at the top 50, but you can see there's plenty of them, north side, south side, and then quite a few of them, you know, if we take out those couple of outliers, really are between about 10 and 20% for increases. So what about the ones that have dropped the most in price? You can see right here, these ones are what have dropped the most. So almost 25% down for Lino Lakes. Plymouth, actually, I was really surprised to see that one. For Plymouth, prices coming down. They have definitely seen some new construction, as has Hugo. Hugo is one of those cities that there's a couple of big national builders. They put in some big, huge developments, and I know at least one or two of those closed out last year. They sold off everything. As a result, the demand this year has just been a lot lower. So I don't think it's one of those things to be scared away from these cities necessarily that have seen big price adjustments, because there can be other factors involved. How competitive a city is really gonna be determined by the month's supply of inventory. So that's what we're gonna look at next. Now, what you're looking at here, the lower this number is, the fewer months supply it is, and that means the more seller favored the market is in that city. So the higher number it is, the more towards being a buyer's market it is. Now, if you have no context, if you haven't been watching our market updates, then let me explain that a balanced market is generally gonna be between about 4 to 6 months supply of inventory. So the fact that any of these starting at 0.4 month supply, I mean, it's literally about a tenth of what we like it to be, just dramatically less than what we would want. But of course, these are going to be the most competitive markets. This is where we have considerably more buyers than we have sellers. That ratio is what they put into a number here. So you can see, even with this, just like I had said before, just because the price points of an area are lower does not mean that it's lower demand. It just simply means the homes themselves are less expensive than the rest of the market. So Brooklyn Center, White Bear Lake, Richfield, Crystal, all coming into the top 5 with South St. Paul. Shoreview, again, this one saw huge price increases, but it's still incredibly competitive versus some of the other ones. I'll go back to Coon Rapids, which we talked about before. one of the lowest price points, but still with a ton of competition there. So overall, you just got to keep in mind, it's more about which type of property you're looking for, what your budget is, because that can really affect things plus and minus. Now, last and perhaps most importantly, we got to look at the change in that competition over year, because are we becoming a more competitive market, or is the market completely cooling off? I've now sorted this by the 1 year change in how competitive that area is. So on this column here, the higher that number is, the more balanced the market has become, or the less competitive it has become. So I know it's a little tricky, stay with me here. These ones have become less competitive over the last 12 months. Rosemount, Shakopee, Evergrove Heights, and Prior Lake for the South Metro. And then on the north side, you've got Rogers, Fridley, St. Michael, Lino, Maple Grove, Shoreview, and Hugo. So overall, still a pretty nice mix. The ones that have been less competitive are on the north side. So whether you're looking for the most sought after neighborhoods, or whether you're trying to get into an area that you're not gonna have to compete as much, you're not wanting to go up and over on that price as much, the North Metro does have a pretty good percentage of those that saw less competitive growth, which is kind of a good thing, because it's becoming slightly more balanced in those areas. Means you're gonna be able to get a more affordable home because you're on the North Metro, and you're not gonna have to compete quite as hard with the terms that you offer the seller. And then on the flip side, which ones of them have been most sought after and have become incredibly competitive? Well, you can see all of those listed here now that I've inverted it. You can see White Bear Lake, for example, up 43% in how competitive it is. So there's just a quick look at how the Twin Cities real estate market is shaping up. My name's Joe Carmack. I'm your real estate agent. I'd love to help you with your next move. So you can find all my contact info down below. You can find neighborhood tours for a bunch of these cities that we just mentioned, and make sure to subscribe so you see our market updates every single month.